Well, welcome everyone to session number 2 of this Spiritual Beings Virtual Summit. And I'm really excited to be joined for this session with some of our Beings team, but also some very special guests and incredible spirit-led people in their own in their own journeys and all that they are doing and bringing not only into this space but just into the world. So this whole session is all about why spirituality in Web3, and I think that is a fascinating question, and it is one obviously that we believe very deeply in, because we we believe, as we have said in our previous session, but just to reiterate again, that we are all spiritual beings, that we are spirit, mind, and body, and that within each and every one of us is the spirit that is often neglected, often really misunderstood, or not engaged in a way that brings people into a whole new way of life and a whole new way of experiencing it. So spiritual beings, we are so excited to be bringing a focus on spirituality, to be really having that as our main focus and really viewpoint and lens of viewing everything else through. And so there's many different ways that people express spirituality. There's many different ways that we personally connect in. And so I'm excited to hear today from both Shira and Carl, who are joining us, as well as Ian and Brenda, just about what that looks like within a Web3 format, within this whole NFT world, and how that would intersect, what that could look like. So I would love if we could everyone just introduce yourself, maybe just share a little bit about your story, your journey in Web3, and what it is that you are working on at this time. So let's start with Ian and Brenda, if you'd like to just introduce yourselves again for everyone from the Spiritual Beings team, and then we'll jump over to Carl and Shira.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Ian Hogue. I'm head of wellness at Spiritual Beings, and what's most important to me is this spiritual journey that I'm having. Everything else that we do as humans is we can place as very important, money, relationships, jobs, and those are fun things to play with. But at the end of the day, we're all going to live and we're all going to die. And what was really important in that time period? What really do we take with us? So for me, my life, having struggled as a kid and mentally, and I was looking for bigger answers. I would look at the stars and be like, how could this massive, infinite universe, like, who am I in the face of this? And it's led me on a journey, and it's not been easy the whole way, but it's the uneasiness that's actually led me to some deeper insight. I'm excited because Web3 space is this new kind of frontier, right? It's decentralized, it's blockchain. And you can just feel the excitement in the space. I'm excited that Carl and Shira are here because they can kind of share their excitement as well with it. But I'm also here to want to be able to bring what's important into that space. And for me, what's important is that we make sure that we really connect to our hearts and to each other. And if we're not doing that, Web3 becomes this, once again, space that is creating suffering. So I wanted to share at the beginning here, and maybe I can introduce Carl, just because it's such a fun story. And to me, it fits so perfectly with spirituality. Like, there's so many times in my life where I get in my own way with, I try to control things. I try to make things happen. And then there's certain things where if I just let go, amazing things happen. And this is how I met Carl. We were both Zuki holders early on there, and they were doing this event here in LA. And, I had gone early and gotten some dinner and thought, well, I'll go over right when it starts. Well, at that point, this big party that was so like the event to be at had this massive line. And so sure enough, I have to go sit and wait in that line. And then who shows up right next to me is Carl, this nice, just outgoing guy. And we start talking, and we literally had this whole line that took maybe 2 hours to finally realize that I wasn't getting into this event. But I met Carl, and we exchanged info, and then Carl was always he was excited about his NFT projects and asking me about my interests. And it's actually Carl that introduced me to Jody, because he had spoken to Jody as well about wanting to bring spirituality and wellness. And he's like, it's not really my thing, but hey, you two get together. So Jody and I, as far as working together and me being here, is because of just saying yes to an experience and saying yes to just talking to the soul that I happened to bump into. And my plans were ruined. And I love that. So here we are. Carl, yeah.
Such a great story.
I mean, I'll tell the other side of that. I mean, it was really fun just to kind of connect with Ian, because with this Web3 space, it's about go, 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 right? It's about literally working 24/7 and making it work. But I felt like there was just a sense of peace where he was at the time. And there was just something there. I didn't know what it was, but I definitely reached out, and I would ping you once in a while. On the other side of the equation was then I was meeting with Jody on a weekly basis through introduction, through one of my, I think, most spiritual friends in New York, artist David Chang, who I always stay in touch with and really believe in, and he felt a need for us to connect. So we literally met with Jody and her partner on a weekly basis, and we were trying to figure something out. So I really want to work with them, but as you guys know, I'm working on 24/7 comics now, and that really started taking up a lot of time, and I'm just kind of like, it's interesting. Like, I think when it comes to spirituality, I feel like, I've always grown up believing in a higher power. And I feel like we're all just pawns in this giant whatever is being played. And if you just trust and you think about, what the connections that can be, they actually do happen. And I think it was literally like, I was thinking, all right, I don't want to leave Jody hanging. Like, who in my network would potentially like equate to something. And then Ian literally just popped in mind one day, and I was like, hey, like, would you guys mind if I connected you guys? And both of them were very open. And then months later, like, you guys got a project. So I'm super excited for you guys and happy to be here. I'll introduce myself. I'm Carl Choi. I'm a project lead at 24/7 Comics. And so before that, I worked about a decade in promotions, another decade in artist management, and then I worked another the last few years in like events production, and where I kind of ran the show as well through PepsiCo, one of our clients, which is another small world kind of thing. And so over the last 2 years during pandemic, events were not very popular, so I had to kind of wind that company down. And I got really lucky. I ended up getting a producer deal at a studio and started working on film and TV. And when they asked me what I wanted to do, I said I always want to do film and TV content based on comic books, because when I came to America as a little kid, I had no friends. I was a bit loner. I didn't speak the language, and comic books saved my life, because I literally would come home with a stack of comics and read comics, learning English as well as learning how to imagine. And so it was so weird that in the course of trying to find a comic, one of the studio executives said, hey, why are you trying to option these comics when you're a deal? Why don't you ask some of these creators if they have stories they want to tell? And so I literally went to the first creator that came to mind. Was during a time in my life, I was questioning if there was a God. I took off in life. I went to Vancouver. I rented a car and I drove through Alaska for a month. I lived there in my car. And when I got to Fairbanks, there was a comic book shop there. And when I asked the comic book shop guy to recommend me some comics, he recommended me to this book called Luther Strode. And that writer, Justin Jordan, is the guy I'm working with today on our first book. But since then, over the last couple of years, we've produced like 6 pieces of content, and we have 9 comics now in production. And ultimately, kind of what we're doing as a mission here on 24/7 Comics is really adapting comic books for Web3. And then second, creating a fair and equitable creator ecosystem, and we call it partnership publishing, where all the creators participate in the rights of it for the life of the IP that they create. So for me, I love that transparency piece. And then third is empowering a community to get behind these creators so they could tell the stories they want to tell. And so, yeah, that's what 24/7 Comics is about. And so, super excited to chat more about it as we get through this stream. So, thanks for having us today. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. That's so exciting, Carl. Congratulations on everything so far. And it's just amazing. I love that is the person you're working with and how the story just all unfolds. It's wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. And Shira, I'd love you to introduce yourself.
Oh, hey, I love how all of us have met in different ways. So it's great to connect. My name is Shira Lazar. I'm part broadcaster, part creative entrepreneur. I started a company called What's Trending over a decade ago. We were one of the first companies as a digital publisher to cover the influencer and social media creator space. I was very early on in the creator economy with YouTube and worked with news organizations like CBS News and CNN before really diving into my own company and brand. And also kind of through What's Trending, almost ran a seven-figure at like agency doing influencer marketing and content. And that's where I ran into Carl and was working with Fortune 500 brands like Pepsi and Ford and Samsung. And, I eventually definitely hit my own kind of burnout moments where I just had so many ups and downs with the company that I just got a bit lost, and that led me down a bit of a personal growth journey a few years ago. Partially, I think it's just age. I hit the age where that happens, but the age and my experience and the circumstance just all fit right together and aligned, the perfect storm of sorts. And I actually thought in many ways I would leave media and digital media. I didn't feel a connection to it. I felt it was all a bunch of young influencers and didn't feel it was relevant for me anymore. And I wasn't really inspired about the space. And so I started a wellness company during COVID with my friend Jordana Ream after, we had done a life-changing trip going to Everest Base Camp where we started to talk about like, what would it be like to bring in my passion around all these yummy conversations like around spirituality and life and growth and wellness and all this stuff we talk about behind the scenes. Like, what would it be like to bring that to the content I do in my personal platform? And that began that journey of starting to integrate that part of me and show it publicly, where definitely it got a lot of people thinking I was very woo woo, including my parents. But, it was a beautiful, I think, journey of my own, and it has been of my own self expression and just really just living out my truth, because what a beautiful gift that is for myself and for others, and to hopefully inspire others that they get to live their truth. We're each like magical gifts here, and we get to like be our brightest, biggest selves while we're here in this life. And Peace Inside Live, the wellness company that I started with Jordana, we started out as a virtual studio during COVID. And then there was Zoom fatigue, and we moved into more, I would say, corporate wellness with a lot of the brands I used to work with. Oddly enough, then you see the connection. You're like, oh, that was meant for a reason. I was meant to work with those big brands. Like now I get to bring them wellness. Like how random is that? And then we actually got hired by an NFT to run wellness in their Discord. So I was like, this is really interesting. And then simultaneously, I started personally getting into the NFT space through also people that I'd been in the Web2 world with, and started to get asked to host spaces and to consult and advise just based on my expertise from Web2, which I thought didn't matter anymore, but it did. And that was also an evolution for me of recognizing, wow, the experience and my journey has mattered, and it wasn't meant for no reason. And like that also was, I think, a new upgrade in terms of my own self-worth, and recognizing that, yeah, it was all there for a reason, and I just get to take it in and appreciate it all. And so really looking to now merge both worlds that I love, digital culture and emerging movements, cultural movements that touch on tech and media with now wellness, and really building Peace Inside Live to create customized wellness tools for Web3 communities and their teams. So that's kind of like where I've been, where I'm at, And I just love to bridge the gap and make this world more accessible to more people, and make sure that we have an awareness of equity too in it all, so that we don't leave anyone behind.
Yeah. Oh, Shira, thank you so much for sharing, and just amazing. I completely agree and love. You are inspiring to look to live your truth, and I love the way that you were talking about that. It is, and sometimes when you first come into the space, it's like, oh, none of that matters anymore. Like you just disregard all of this part of who you are, but it actually is the opposite. You have this opportunity just to merge everything together in one space and see what can come out. And so I love that we get to see you doing that as a role model inspiration for others. And I think it's really exciting, because the more people start doing that and being their true selves and really expressing that, the richer this space will be, because people are awesome, and they've got so much inside them to bring out. So thank you for that. Brenda, I'd love you to share and introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I was on mute. You know what, Miss Shira, I think we follow each other.
We do. We do. We
I
end
love
up in
you for
similar
that.
spaces. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I love you. I admire you. You're the person that when I see you in an event, I know I'm in the right event. So that's a good thing. Carl, your story is amazing. Man, drove to Hawaii. I mean, not Alaska, Fairbanks, and then met what you're supposed to be doing. That's just faith. That's what I call faith that can move a mountain. That's an awesome story. I would love to hear more more about that also. Ian, your story is also very touching. I just need to know. I mean, I'll probably ask that as we go, because you sound like you've been through enough to educate a whole generation, but you look so young. So again, we'll talk about that when the time comes. So I'm the mother. A lot of people call me mom, so that's why that crypto mom name came. I used to go into these telegrams and discords back in 2020 when everybody was shut down in the house, and we were working from home. So you log out of work and you're like, okay, what else is there to do? Oh, my kids, my daughters are into this thing called Web3 and blockchain, and let me go hang out with them. And I would go hang out with them, and they'll be like, Mom, please don't say that you're our mom. Like, you cannot let people know we have a mom here. And I'm like, I want people to know I have my kids. So when they would start acting up, I'll be like, okay, listen, my kids are in here, and they would be like, she's a mom, she's a real mom. And then so anyway, that's how I got into Web3 via traditional finance. My traditional finance career was starting to get boring, and I knew that there was something else that I thought was interesting. I love technology, and my daughters had been talking about it all the time, and their Zerion wallets kept growing, and I'm nosy, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to know how you're able to pay rent, and you just got out. I mean, you don't want to finish college. Like, what's going on? Like, so I'm just the mom who wants to always know, and thank God that led me to this. And again, for me, there's always a higher power, and that higher power is God. He leads me in every step of the way. I know that if I'm leaving one area to going to another, like my career was starting to be boring, I know God led me here. So with me being here, I've been able to bless other people. I've been able to motivate other people. I've been able to reach out to people who otherwise I would not have been able to, had I still been in my 9 to 5, because it's 9 to 5. I mean, go in, log in, do your 8 hours, don't talk about nothing but just your loans or your underwriting or whatever you're doing. So this world, going to conferences, meeting people, technology, the industry, and life, oh my God, it's been an amazing last 2 years. It's been amazing. Got to meet I mean, when I started with Boss Beauties, obviously got to meet you, Miss Jody, and in your family. So I mean, I haven't met the kids yet, but I met you, and that has been amazing. It's and then you introduced me to what the project you're working on. So any way I can help, I was like, I mean, I got like so many irons in the fire right now. Like, you all know I'm trying to be a billionaire in the next 5 years. So I'm not doing it with my power. God's gonna do it. Okay. So he got a lot of work to do. I'm just helping him along the way. No, he doesn't need help. But so I have a lot of things going on. But yeah, I made time for this, and yeah, and that's how I'm here.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. I love even just on this, on this call now, the five of us and the different stories we bring, the different ways we all express our spirituality. And that almost is like a little tiny glimpse into the mosaic of this whole space and of humanity and the way that we all carry that differently. And yet it just comes together in a beautiful, really beautiful way. So I'd love us to just talk about what are some of you think are the very best parts about Web3, about this space, the advantages of being in here early and being part of what's happening, and the flip side of that, because we know that everything's not all roses, and there are obviously, with every plus side there comes a challenge as well. And so what do you think are some of the challenges that people are facing, we all face in here as well? I guess the best and the worst. What does that look like for you? I'll let anyone jump in.
What I love about the space, why you should be here early. I don't know. Oh, sorry, I took off my other AirPods. Hopefully, I think it's just there's a lot of fun community. I think just like-minded people with common values, like whatever you're interested in, you could find that community here. And because people feel like we're part of something special, it's like this special club, like underground club that we're all part of. And then it builds a camaraderie, I think, that we don't have otherwise. And in a way, when we're early to things like this, and because I've been previously early in other spaces, it does feel like this like childlike energy of possibility and creativity and enthusiasm and collaboration and co-creation. And I think that's an energy we should always have. Unfortunately, a lot of times we lose that just through the cycles of life and chapters. But when there's this energy right now in this space, and it's very infectious. So I feel like it's inspiring in that way. And because it includes so many different disciplines, it can really allow you to think outside the box. And you're constantly learning from so many incredible people.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of that too. I think it's intoxicating almost. It's so fun to be a part of, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'd second that with Sheer for sure. The excitement. It's just so exciting. I love that you said this little club. It does feel like a club. What I hope we don't lose is the camaraderie, because there's a way in which we can turn it into some competitiveness or bring in all the things we didn't like about Web 2 right back into Web 3. And then all of a sudden we're talking about Web 4. It's like, but I think there's this sort of incubation period right now. And I'm kind of glad that Web 3 is just, it's evolving, and it's going to take time for it to really come to fruition, these metaverses and that kind of stuff, because I think it gives us time to get it right. And, I love that we're having a conversation like this, because I think heart, I think spirit, I think what makes us commonly the same on a deep level is what's going to make Web3 really, or keep Web3 in that really special, exciting space. But I'm concerned that if we don't put that forward, if we don't keep that going, that, it's just going to turn into all that other stuff we don't like about Web 2 coming into Web 3. So I think we have a responsibility, especially, people in this room that are creators in the space, to speak to, no, that has no space in this space. When people are, whether it's people on Twitter or whatever, that are just kind of bringing a certain negativity.
I love what Ms. Shira said, and I love what Ian you just said. This is it feels like underground club for now. We're the new kids on the block. Actually, we're the cool kids. Everybody's like, well, how can I get into that club? Like y'all are so cool. Like everybody's you know, vibing with their community, and you get to go to these events that we don't even know what you're talking about. Like I stopped sharing on Facebook that I'm speaking about, because they don't get it. They don't get it. They're far behind. And I'm like, okay, I love my schoolmates that I went to high school with 20, 30 years ago, but they sound like when I talk, it seems like I'm speaking a foreign language. And so I'm just gonna vibe with these other cool kids, you know what I'm saying? So when my former coworkers call me and ask me, hey, I see you've been doing this and that, can you tell me about it? And I'm like, do you want to join Twitter, and then you can learn faster? You know, I mean, I can tell you, but the space is moving so fast. And they're like, well, we don't even have Twitter. And I'm like, I don't even know if I can help you then. You know what I'm saying? So um the space is interesting and it's growing, and I love being part of this journey. I love being part of this new kids on the block kind of Web3 now. um that Web2 will come in at some point and will probably try no, I think they're already coming in. They're already curious. One thing that I've noticed with humans, excitement of a new space peaks when the price of Bitcoin starts to go up. Right now, nobody's concerned about what we're doing, and that's a good thing. We're building, we're launching, we're continuing to do what we're doing. By the time they figure out what's going on, you know, Bitcoin will probably be, or Ethereum will probably be peaking again, but then we'll be able to now talk and explain to them, well, this is when you should have come in, like right now.
I can't agree more. It's funny. The way Brendan explained it is more like a club, and the coolest thing about it, I think it's almost like a club of many clubs. I feel like there's like something for everybody. It's like kind of the best use case for tribalism. It's like through the pandemic, it's almost like we all reverted to kind of our most primitive selves to find what is calling to us and then gravitating to these different communities. And I think there's something about Web3 that's really special in that way, where I think for me at least, like, you know, I like to socialize, but I think as I age, I feel less energy to like travel, get on a plane, drive. I mean, Shira and I both live in LA. I don't think I've ever seen her in LA. Like we always see each other at like Sundance or like random places, right? New York, right? And so it's one of those things where like I was such a road warrior. Uh, Leading up to pandemic, I was already burning out. I was already kind of like, how long can I live this life for? And I think I've been able to like stay home. I'm like a house husband. I do laundry, I vacuum, and then I have my dogs. I like walk the dogs three times a day, like not having to hire a walker. I'm starting to travel again. It's kind of tough, but you know, I think for me, I kind of saw a glimpse of what, you know, has been prepared for me and like what life would ideally look like through Web3. But on the other side of it, I have to say, I'm really glad we're having this conversation today, because I think it's been on my mind the last couple of weeks, because our project's a little different. We operate on more of like a long-term vision of really adapting a whole industry. And so the expectations of the audience are often mismatched, and we have to do a lot of explaining as to why we're doing certain things and why we're not just creating these hype cycles, and why we're like, you know, targeting a very smaller audience at first and not trying to set these expectations. I mean, number one, from my kind of past life in music, you know, I was lucky enough and also unlucky enough to be part of a group that had a hit single, 6 times platinum single out of the gate. And it was like the blessing and a curse, because I was able to travel around for a year with them and like performing the same song over and over again. But in the weirdest way, like when I think back to what hell means, I would say that's that. Like you're doing the exact same thing over again for the rest of your life. And then second to that, your brand completely ties into that single. You're chasing that for hype forever. I feel like a lot of NFT projects come out of the gate like that, and you see, oh, price pump, and then it just drops. A lot of it's because you set such an expectation that you can never achieve again. And so I've been very intentional in slowly building the base, and I think there's a lot of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But the good thing is we're actually building a really good community. So over the last 2 weeks, why I've been thinking about that is it's stressing me out because I'm kind of torn between these two worlds, and I'm feeling a level of anxiety I haven't felt for a long time. And so this talk has been really good because I'm basically vocalizing some of the things that's been going through my mind. And so wherever this talk leads, I think it's a huge reminder for me to make sure I'm centered with God and His role in my life.
May I ask what hit single?
What band? What
Yeah, right. Yeah, we may just be listening to the songs and not knowing who's behind it. So
I'll put that history behind me, but I'll tell you guys offline at some point.
What?
Oh
That,
my gosh!
oh, were you a manager or were you in it?
I was a manager. For
Oh, for real?
few folks. Yeah. So it was really fun. Total past life. But you know, it's weird too. Like I thought I was working my dream job at the time, but I in hindsight, I didn't really think it was like my calling. I think it was a skill set that contributed to what happened. But it's weird. I was just sharing this. I was in another podcast this morning, and I was sharing how, in the weirdest way, even though much older than I was in like my last couple runs, I'm working harder than ever. I feel like I'm working in my dream job. I'm loving what I do, so I don't mind pouring time into it. But at the same time, like the last couple of weeks, now that we've been like dropping products and all that, a lot of anxiety because I'm just kind of like, oh, like what's happening, and it's been great. My wife's been super supportive, and she's just such a rock through this whole process. And so I think, I think the spirituality piece is big for us. And so I think there's something here.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so great. Carl, thank you so much for sharing. And, I totally agree. And it's really interesting the way, if you look at it, where the things that we're saying are the best parts of Web3, I think I'd be interested to hear us think about how does spirituality make them even better. And then the hard parts of Web3, the stuff that we all carry and we all deal with in different ways, how does spirituality help us in that? I thank you, Carl, already for sharing that personal experience of just being, even just in your mindset, being able to just try and help some of that anxiety with that spirituality. What does that look like, Shira, for you? What does that look like for you, Ian, too?
Yeah.
How does it make it better, and how does it just help?
Oh, a lot. I mean, I'm a Jew, but I love like Buddhist practices. I believe in like universal consciousness, higher consciousness. And so, for me, having mindfulness practices is really important. Continuing to work that muscle is really important. I'm not perfect. I'm like constantly a work in progress. But that's why you have those tools. It's like, okay.
We all are a work in progress.
Yeah, I know. Totally. It's so funny because with everything I talk about, I remember one of my employees being like, "You talk a lot about this, but I'm not seeing it from you here." And I'm like, okay. I was like, I hear the feedback. By the way, this was like a year or two ago, so I've come a long way. But you know what I mean? Like, I sometimes I do get that feedback, or from my partner, right? Like, you're not being present, you're not blah, blah, blah. And so you could be talking. I think it's important to talk about the fact that we could be talking about this and we could be guided by it or have companies around it, and yet still we're constantly working on it in our own lives. Like, I think it's amusing when someone acts like, oh yeah, they're like, greater than now, and like they have all the answers, and yet you hear behind the scenes people that work with them that say otherwise. So it's like, I like to speak it like it is and share that because I just think it's important. But I embrace the imperfections in the journey. What I was going to say is, recently I found also, Carl, that I was experiencing a lot of anxiety. And I mean, I'm an energetic and an anxious person. I've been like biting my nails my entire life. So definitely some anxiety there, whether I like it or not. And I'm going through a lot of transitions, and I noticed I was starting to get not just anxious, but in this fear mode also. Like this idea of like, okay, I hope I take advantage of this moment, or what if I make the wrong move? And like I started like overthinking and overanalyzing everything. And I finally one day I was in the shower. This is recently, and I had a moment where typically, I have like my mantras I tell myself in the shower. That's where I do it. And I also had these cards where I'd written down manifestations for the year, and like I love this like quantum manifestations, acting as if you already have it and feeling into it. But I finally was like, you know what, fuck it. Like I'm giving up, I'm letting go, and I am surrendering. Like I already have my intentions. I know my goals. Like and they're not going away just because I don't talk about it and overly focus on it every day. What I get to have is I get to have surrender and trust in my path. And I had this moment where I literally was like in the shower, like, okay, fuck it, you won, you won. And I was like, higher consciousness, universal consciousness, please just like direct me on my path, and I will let go and surrender to you, like and lead me on on the path of the highest service and purpose for all. And now just been doing that prayer every single day, and it was amazing. The minute that happened, it was like my own burdens like let go of me, the burden and the heaviness of the control of everything, like everything I was trying to control. And I just started like weeping in the shower, just like, okay, here it is. I'm just letting go. And since then, I feel like I've had a lot less anxiety recently. And every time I kind of get that feeling of control again and holding on, I try to remember, okay, let go, like trust. You're going to be okay. It's all good. Just keep showing up and keep trusting, right? Um, so that's a bit of my recent spiritual awareness.
God, I love that. I love the honesty. There's so much.
Yeah, that was very raw. That was really, really nice.
Amazing.
When I feel people talk from their heart, it makes me want to talk from mine. Like, like there's such a sweetness to that I want to be truthful and honest and more authentic. So I love that this is happening right now, because this is, it's like you said, Shira, it's like in this ego mind, somehow I think that I can figure out a way out of this stress. And really at the end of the day, it's this mind that's causing the suffering as well. So there's a moment of just realizing, calling yourself out and just letting go and being imperfect. And then everything is, or relief is given, often just shows up there. I love that. I found that in my own life, the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you. I just thank you for that. It's really amazing. Yeah. And just trust. And when you trust in something higher, you're almost in turn just trusting yourself, because everything's a reflection of everything.
That's right. Something deeper and more expansive than the limited part of our mind. Like I'm always running into suffering when I try to take control and I'm trying to do something. And then when I can just let go, it's like, it's actually a relief, because then the universe kind of makes connections and makes things happen. And what a relief not to have to be in charge of everything. Like this universe is so complicated. I'm so glad that I'm not in charge of it all. That's so stressful.
Yeah, I feel you guys on that, because when you have a lot going on and you try and play Superwoman or Superman, like I can get this, I got this, and then the minute where you realize you don't, you can't, you just need to like you let go and let God. It feels so much better, I'm the owner of a DeFi platform since last year October, and when I'm trying to make like things happen, like, okay, the price, okay, well, what can we do? Well, let's say this, let's do this. Devs, where are the devs? Devs, hurry up, give us some news. We gotta say something, But when I don't stress and I don't worry about it, and people are like calling me like, hey, Crypto Mom, you're in Vegas at this event. Well, price is this. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. That's fine. They're like, you're not stressed? Do I look stressed? I let it go, and I let God. So let him stress about it. I'm gonna go to sleep, and I'm gonna, just leave it in God's hands. And the next morning I wake up, I'm like, man, God, you do have a sense of humor, don't you? Because the things you're stressing about have already been fixed. So that's amazing that we realize as I get older. I'm actually still 46 for a few days, so I can say I'm 46. Yeah. I turned 47 at the end of the month. But yeah, so at my age, it's taken years to realize it. In my 30s, I was moving and doing and doing and doing. In my 40s, and now even as I get older, I'm just like, you know what, God, you got this, and I let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those power words really, Shira, that surrender and that moment of being in the shower, I think there are some of those most defining moments of our life when that happens. It's happened to me, and obviously happened to us on this call. And just to be able to recognize those moments and that relief that comes when we finally surrender and just let it go. I mean, oh my gosh, I think that is a spiritual awakening, because that is when our spirits finally have that room to just that trust that we extend in that moment, that goes beyond ourselves. As you said, there's so much about you can do it. We're powerful. We're this, we're that, and we are. But there's also that it's all balanced with that very deep spiritual posture that says, this is bigger than me. I can't do this in my own strength. I have to have that surrender in the way I do it. So for people who are like brand new to all of this, people who are watching this and who in Web3, but they want to explore spirituality and they don't know what that would look like, and they're kind of just listening to all of our stories, trying to work out, what would you say is like the first steps? What would be something that people could tangibly just take away and think, this is where I could start. I understand spirituality has an amazing effect and would be incredible for my journey in Web3, but how do I even do that? What does that look like? I'd love to hear Carl, Shira, Ian, Brenda, anyone, some
Sure.
ideas.
I think participating in anything Web3 is already a test of faith in itself.
Yes.
I
The
love that.
macro markets are saying everything the opposite. So, I'm on the same boat as Brenda. I'm like, this is perfect time to build. But you go out there, I don't know if you guys been in a situation like this where like I'll be at dinners with a bunch of folks who, aren't very familiar with Web3, but I'll be like, oh, I'm working on this project, Web3, and you could totally see their faces change, like they feel sorry for you. Like must be tough right now. And then and I'm, genuinely like very confident in what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing. But it does like, it's a little prickly, like when you get those looks, right? And so I think it is that. I think in taking a step into this space has been like an ultimate test of faith. And what's really fun about kind of like this, this club that we're in is we all are taking this risk together, and we all truly believe, and we see this as the future. There's something inside our gut that's telling us to do this, and I think that's I think step one for anyone. I think it's a great test in itself by just getting involved.
Yeah, I love that because one thing I've noticed is people like comfort. A lot of the world loves comfort. I love being comfortable, knowing I was going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks for the last 15 or 18 years. When Carl, when you say that Web3 is a test, this is a test. Some of us, I don't know how many did, were able to set some money aside. Some people weren't. I was reading a tweet from one of the people that I follow in the space. He's influencer, kind of not as big as most, but he said, well, I don't know if it was the right thing to do to quit my Web2 job. Like, why would you second guess that now? Like, this is the time you double down and say, I'm here for a reason. But then when they figure out, okay, well, I can't get my, I don't know, rent or interest rates are going up really high. You can't buy the home you thought you're going to buy. This is really a test for a lot of people. So what I would tell people, how would you start in this, is start by first believing. And sometimes when you tell people about, okay, believe in something, they're going to ask you, well, I'm not a Christian, or I'm not a Jew, I'm not whatever religion that we're putting out there. And I'm like, no, it's not. You don't have to even be that. But believe in something from yourself, something that's not you controlling things. So that's how I would tell them. I mean, if it's yoga for you, if it's whatever form of wellness that you need to just let it go and let God just use that.
Yeah, amazing. Look, guys, I could literally sit here for hours talking about this. It's so refreshing to actually be, just sharing and hearing stories and just understanding that we are more the same than we are different. And it is often our brokenness that allows us to really relate with one another and come together in that way, because it's not all of our success sometimes. That's great, but it's sometimes that vulnerability and those times where we're just really true to who we are and what our story is, and how endearing that is to others, and the authentic community that can create. So I want to thank you all so very much for being part of this conversation. I'm excited that this is not the end; it's just the beginning. There's many more of these kind of conversations to have, and awareness and experiences, and a journey to discover. So thank you for joining us for this session today. We really value your time, Carl and Shira. Ian and Brenda, and we will to be continued. We will see you soon.
I was gonna say one more just thing. Peace Inside Live is like doing a lot of spaces with like the wellness community and spiritual community in Web3. So that's a good place to start, to just find people that you connect with, but yet are interested in this space. And then you could, kind of see how they're using this space around wellness and spirituality. So I just wanted to share that as like an action item.
Yes.
Yeah, and in case you don't know what Spaces is, listen to Brenda's advice and sign up for Twitter first.
Yeah, go to Twitter, follow all of us, see what we're doing.
Exactly, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. We and Spiritual Beings has a Twitter space like in 10 minutes following this with a wrap up from today. So jump on there, find out everything that's happening, and there's lots of conversations. So it's so great. So thank you so much all again. And
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
It's great.